All right. So you can grab this as I'm looking also. And so this is the skull that everybody's going to be tested. You're going to see that the interior of it matches the interior of that one. The skull that we have here available, it's a little bit different. You'll see that they're missing some holes and etc., but this is more accurate to the actual human bone, okay? So we're going to start with the interior. Because I want you to start with the interior. It makes it much easier for you guys to learn. Also get your cranial nerves. If you don't know them very well, take them out, because we're going to see where they go through on here, all right? All right, so the skull, as you can see, has three fossas. It has how am I going to put this so that everybody can see? Has an anterior fossa, cranial fossa. It has a middle cranial fossa, and it has a posterior cranial fossa. The anterior cranial fossa, which is like a little, when we say fossa, it's like a little indentation, like cup-like structure, like when you hold, water in there, it has an indentation. The anterior one is produced because of your frontal lobe of the brain. The middle one, which is right in the middle, it's going to be created because of your temporal lobes of the brain. And the inferior one is going to be created because of the cerebellum. Okay? A lot of people get confused and they assume it's the occipital lobe, but it's not. It's going to be produced by your cerebellum. So here you have anterior, middle, and inferior. Anterior, middle, and inferior. Okay? Anterior, middle, and inferior. Okay? The other thing that you're going to look at is that, of course, this is anterior because this is what the front of the face, and this is the posterior because it goes towards the back, and then of course the middle. But on the anterior fossa, you'll see a diamond-like shape in the middle. You see it? Okay. Everybody sees it? Mm-hmm. This diamond shape is known as the cripiform plate. You guys know it as the olfactory, but I need you to learn it as cripiform, like a crib and a form. Cripiform plate. Okay? The cripiform plate, you'll see that it has these little holes in it, which you guys know as your cripiform foraminas. What cranial nerve lies on top of there?
The olfactory?
Cranial nerve number 1, olfactory, okay? So the cripiform plate, cripiform foraminas, the holes that fit in there are going to allow what? The nerves to go through cranial nerve number 1. It is the only cranial nerve that is exposed to the outside. The rest are internal, okay? It's the one that we first smell, okay? The other thing that you're going to find is a little thing coming out, which we call it what? Crista galli. Cresta del gallo. Okay, you see it here? All right? Crista galli. Okay? This crista galli, the purpose for it is for the attachment of the dura mater, which is the membrane that wraps the brain. That's the only function that it does. Okay? Above the crista galli, there is another hole, foramen secum. Okay? There's another little hole there, you see? Foramen secum. Foramen secum. Okay? And this allows for emissaries from the olfactory. Okay? Also, it's going to give, we'll work with the trigeminal also. Remember the trigeminal, branch number 1 is for what? Olfactory, for smell. Some people will have a cranial nerve 13 and 14. 13 and 14, hardly nobody talks about it because those are cranial nerves that you see it more related in sharks. That's how sharks can smell blood very far away underwater. Humans have it, and those are the people that they contract for those expensive perfumes and tasters for wines, and they smell things that we don't smell, normal people. They have an excellent smell in their nostril. So that's what's going to be found in the anterior fossa. Got it? You have it there. Line it up, etc. Okay? So now, what you need to change for cranial nerve number 1 is that I no longer want it to be called what? Olfactory foramen. I want it to be called what? Cribriform foramen. It has a plate, which is going to include all 3 things. The cribriform plate will include what? The cribriform foraminas, which means multiple holes. That's going to allow the passage of cranial nerve number 1. And it also has what? The foramen secum, which is on top, and the crista galli. You got it? Yes? Now we move to the middle. But before we move to the middle, you'll see like an arch. You see this arch here? This is called the lesser wings. They are the lesser wings. If you look at it from above, from superior, it looks like a stingray. To me it does. And this is my favorite bone. What does that mean when a professor tells you it's their favorite bone?
Learn
You
it.
better learn it, right? So you'll see here the lesser wings, right? And from above, when you look at it superiorly, it looks like a stingray, right? Okay. When you hold it in a tilted way like this, it looks like murciélago, like a bat. If you look at it very well, it really is the Batman symbol when the Batmobile is being called. Okay, that's what it looks like. So again, this is my lesser wings. Now notice that the lesser wings continue with a little knob on the front. You see these little knobs? That looks like the eye of the stingray, no? Okay, those little knobs of the stingray, what they have, they're called the anterior clinoid process. Anterior clinoid process. Okay? Right underneath the lesser wing, there's a slit. See the slit? Okay? That slit is your superior orbital fissure that allows cranial nerve number what? Cranial nerve what? 3, 4, 5, and 6. What is 3? What is 4? What is 5? And what is 6? They all go through the superior orbital fissure. Do not confuse the superior orbital fissure with the superior orbital bridges, because this is out here, not in here. We got that? Please put on a mask. Sneezing on it. Okay? The other thing that you're going to see, there's a little hole here in the middle. You see it? You guys that are back here, I recommend that you squeeze through here because it's like, okay? You see it? That is your hypophyseal fossa. The hypophyseal fossa, it's going to store the sila turcica. Sila turcica means silla turca, Turkish chair. It looks like a slang. If you ever saw Cleopatra, she sat on this chair that was like this. Didn't have a back because it allowed them to sit with that elegancy, no? I'm not Elizabeth Taylor, no? You don't know who she is. But anyways, she was a beautiful woman. She was the only woman in the world that had purple eyes.
Wow. Naturally?
Natural. Okay? So, sila turcica, what does it hold? The pituitary gland. Okay? This is where our pituitary gland is going to be protected, and it lies right in there. Okay? Got it? Now you're going to see in the back of the chair, there is like this, the back of a chair. And that's this portion here. that is known as your dorsal sila. Dorsal means back, sila means chair, back of the chair, okay? This is your dorsal sila. At the end of the chair, and that's like this end, like we put our purses here or we put our elbow or whatever, it's the posterior glenoid process. Remember in the beginning we said we had the anterior one, and then we have what? The posterior one, okay? We got that? That's exactly like it's on there. Now we're going right in the middle. Notice that the middle fossa, if you look at it very well, looks like what? Wings. So remember that we said we had the lesser wings up here. Now this entire thing here in the middle, that we know it as your middle fossa, cranial fossa, it's also known as your greater wings of the sphenoid bone. That's my favorite bone. Now this sphenoid bone, it's important because remember where we said that the anterior glenoid process was found? We also have a hole that goes through it, which would be the hole where, or the eyes of the stingray, right? Okay? And that hole is your optic canal. This will allow for cranial nerve number 2 to go through it. Optic canal. If you look at it through the front, through the orbit, you'll see the hole there. Okay? Does everybody see it? Okay. The next step that you're going to see, right below the fissure, there is another hole. It's completely round. And it's called the foramen rotondo. Rotondo means round. Redondo. Okay? And you'll see it right below the fissure. It's the first hole you're going to run into. Foramen rotondo. What goes through it? Trigeminal, which branch? Maxillary. Okay, that is the one that goes through there. Okay? The next hole, right below it, it's called the ovale. It's oval. Therefore, what cranial nerve? Trigeminal branch what? Mandibular. Okay? Also, it's going to go through there. And right after that one, there's a smaller little hole, which is espinosum. Okay? You'll see it there. Okay? Now, we have like a little mountain in the middle that separates from the fossa, middle fossa, and the posterior fossa. That middle mountain-like structure that we have here is called the petrous. Petrous, okay? The petrous consists of 3 bones, the incus, the malleus, and the staph. Okay? Incus, malleus, and staph. That's in here. All those bones are the smallest bones that we have for the internal ear. Got it? I will ask you in your oral, what are the 3 bones found in the petrous? And you're going to say what? Malleus and staph. Okay? And you have it here. Now you're going to see that the petrous has an anterior wall that basically is towards the middle fossa, and it has a posterior wall that's going to lead to the posterior wall, posterior fossa. The anterior wall, you're going to see 2 holes. The one that's closest to the hypophyseal fossa, it is known as your carotid canal. Let me see. No, mentira. The, oh my God, I just went blank. No. Lacerum. The foramen lacerum. And this is going to allow for part of the carotid, internal carotids to go through there. Okay? have next to it, it's like a little canal on mine, okay? And that is known as your carotid canal. It's telling you what's gonna go, what arteries. What is it's gonna go through it?
Carotid.
The carotid artery, okay? Got that? That is gonna go, so you have two holes. The biggest hole is gonna be the lacerum, and the next one is a canal, which is your carotid canal, okay? Now, behind the petrous, you have another hole. And that is your internal acoustic meatus. I don't want to know the auditory. It needs to be said out. Internal acoustic meatus, okay? That's what you're going to find, the internal acoustic meatus. This is going to allow what cranial nerve? The vestibular cochlear, which is number 8. What other one? The what? The facial, that is correct. Remember, the facial has two areas where it goes through. One is the internal acoustic meatus, and what is the other one? The styloid process that we'll soon show you. Okay? Now, right below the internal acoustic meatus, there is a third hole, another hole there, that has 3 parts. It looks like a little heart to me. And this is known as your jugular foramen. Now, the jugular foramen is divided into 3 parts. It has a superior part that will allow for the eminence of the petrous. It has a middle part that is going to allow for cranial nerves, number what? Go through there, through the jugular. 9, 10, and 11. What is 9? What is 10? What is 11? Those are going to go through there. And then finally, the inferior or posterior hole, we're going to have the jugular vein that goes to it. So there's 3 holes. On the anterior one, it's going to have what? The eminence of the petrous. In the middle, it's going to give passage for what? Which is, I want it in order. 9, 10, and 11. 9 is? 10 is? And 11 is? And then, the inferior portion of it will allow what vein to go to it?
Jugular.
The jugular vein. Okay? You have that so far? Look, you already know where all 3 cranial nerves go through. All 12 of them, no? Then you're going to find another hole. Right below the jugular. That hole, as you can see, goes through here, comes out through here. And a lot of people confuse that hole because they think it's the the hypoglossal canal, and it's not. This is the condylar occipital condyle foramen that will allow for the condylar nerve to go through it, and arteries. In the condylar, which are these, you're going to find a hole there that goes through the middle, like this. Now, this one is what? No, not glossopharyngeal. Hypoglossal canal. The condylar. Don't confuse it. The condylar ends where the condyles are going to end of the occipital bone. Okay? And then we have the biggest hole in the entire skull, known as the foramen magnum. The foramen magnum will allow what to go to it? 3 things. The spinal cord? No. The accessory. And the medulla oblongata. Okay? So if you do it in order, medulla oblongata, accessory, and spinal cord. Okay? Those are your holes in here. We just went through it. You saw how fast we went through it? In the front and the outside now. In the outside, we have important holes too. We have the superior orbital foramen. That one will allow for the superior orbital arteries to go through. Okay? Don't confuse the foramen with the fissure. The fissure, we're only going to be able to see it through the inside or through the inside of this slot. Okay? This is a foramen, a hole that's going to give passage for a nerve. What else are we going to see? In the bottom, we're going to have the inferior orbital foramen. Okay? Inferior orbital foramen. And then on the inside, we'll have the smallest bone in the facial area, which is your lagrimal bone, that will allow for the lagrimal canal. That's where I'm sticking the prod to. The lagrimal canal will allow the lagrimal sac to sit in there. Okay? That's when we cry. That's not when we cry. It'll lubricate the eye, but it also will pass what? Mucus through the nose, and therefore that's why you snot all over the place. Because you're crying and then tears and mucus and everything else, okay? Along with it. All right. What else are we going to look at? On the inferior portion, or actually on the side, we'll have what? The external acoustic meatus. Okay? That's going to allow for us to what?
Yeah.
To be able to have what? The funnel for sound, no? Okay? Right below it, you'll see like a saber tooth, which is a little long bone, which is known as your styloid process. Okay? This allows for your sternal cladomastoidal muscle. Sternal, which means the sternal notch, 1/3 of the clavicle, and then it will insert up here where the mastoid process is. That mastoid process is this bone here. This muscle will allow us to move side to side, okay? To move the neck side to side. That's what this is going to do, okay? But in between the mastoid process and the styloid process, there's another hole there, known as your styloid mastoid foramen. What cranial nerve goes through there? The facial. Okay? Remember, you have that in the cranial nerve. Now, the mastoid process has a notch right behind it. It also has a mastoid foramen. It's a tiny little hole that I have here on the sides on mine. Okay? And so, therefore, in the inside of the hard palate, you will have also the incisive foramen. You'll have the greater palatine foramen, followed by the minor palatine foramens. Now, in that skull, it's not the same as this one, see? You can tell here the greater and the tiny little ones. You don't see it there. And that one, you don't see it neither, Papa.
You just
see
have
it?
the greater?
The greater,
Oh, yeah.
and you see the tiny ones?
Tiny little ones like on the
Those are the lesser, okay?
lesser and
And on the front, we have what? The incisive.
is it this?
This is supposed to be the greater, and these are supposed to be in here, the lesser. And this is the incisive, okay? So for now, that's it for this. We'll go more in details as we go on, because it's a lot.